Alderman Witcher.
Present.
Quorum is present, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Whitby. Can I ask that we stand for the prayer to be led by Alderman Thomas, followed by the pledge by Alderwoman Robinson?
Father in heaven, as we bow in thy presence, we want to thank thee for all the many blessings of life. We're thankful for the opportunity that we have to live in a country that's free. We're thankful for each one that have come this evening, and we'd ask that the things that we do be in accordance with thy will. We want to pray for our military personnel, pray for our leaders, pray for their families. We'd ask that the things that we do be in accordance with thy will. For it's in Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that the minutes of the previous meeting be accepted as submitted. Any discussion on the motion?
Gibson. Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Berry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
We have communications 1 through 5. Do I have a blanket motion?
So moved.
Is a motion made and seconded? Any council member care to pull one?
5.
Number 5, anyone other than 5? On the motion of 1, 2, 3, and 4, then, Ms. Whitby?
Yes. Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Berry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Number 5, by title only, or read?
Read the whole thing, please.
This is a letter dated June the 8th, 2006, to Mayor Patrick H. Hayes regarding governmental notice of proposed antenna mounting on 201 East C Avenue, North Little Rock. Dear Mayor Hayes, Verizon Wireless Tennessee Partnership proposes to mount 3 sets of antenna and associated equipment to the roof of the Park Hill Baptist Church at 201 East C Avenue, North Little Rock, Arkansas. If your office has any comment as to the effect the proposed tower project may have on historic properties, please contact S. Cates, Archer Incorporated, 200 Rough Snow North, Suite 108, Keller, Texas. Please refer to number 165917A. Please note that this notice is made to comply with the FCC requirements and is not being submitted in lieu of obtaining proper zoning or required permits. Thank you for your assistance in this matter. Sincerely, Bruce Hanford, Regional Manager.
Okay. Mayor, I think Mr. Bryant and Mr. Gibson want to talk about it.
Yeah, my only comment to Verizon is that I'd like for them to, if there's any, is there anybody here from Verizon? Well, I'd like for Mr. Voles, or is Mr. Voles here? Someone to talk to Verizon about what the towers they put up and the lack of fulfilling the obligations they agreed to before we discuss any other Verizon towers, and in whatever form we need to do that, through the city attorney or through your office. I'd certainly appreciate it. I know they've, at Ridge Road, they've not fulfilled the obligations that they've said that they would do, and I believe Alderman Witcher perhaps has some issues with them also, so I believe they need to either show up and come talk to us about this, or send them a letter letting them know that we're not pleased with the way they're putting their towers up.
Mayor, to echo Alderman Bryant's sentiments about the cell tower at Ridge Road, I had the residents that live on immediately across the street, or at least next to the fence that has been the chain link fence where the gravel road runs through, and it doesn't. I drove by there Saturday and looked at it, and then I took a look at the legislation that concerning that cell tower on Ridge Road, charter school property, and to me it doesn't look like they have fulfilled the conditions of that legislation. I'm just wondering, Robert, have y'all been up there to inspect that site?
We have. They're removing the gravel, replacing the vegetation. Otherwise, the legislation did approve the stealth slick pole with an 8-foot board fence, which is up. We've been working with the utilities on the street there. That's been disturbed.
Okay.
And, engineering is working on getting that sodded.
Good.
And I guess my,
Thank Alderman Gibson and then Alderman Robinson.
Mayor,
I would probably vote to block any issuance of any additional license to Verizon in the city until I have a full understanding that they're going to do the obligations that they're supposed to do. And that means not do them after we make several trips up there with them and meet with them, and they said, yes, we're going to do that. They dug up complete side of the hill, they did no silt control, they basically ruined the yards, they destroyed the drainage, and it's fine, but how many times do we have to go back up there to get them to do what they said they were going to do in the first place? And I don't know, I mean, it was like, yes, we'll do that tomorrow. A rain comes, it dumps all the dirt back in somebody else's yard again. Oh, well, we'll do it tomorrow. And so, tomorrow's here. And so, simply put, I would oppose any additional Verizon antennas until we get a complete fulfillment of the contracts that they have in place, and let's sit down the next time we do with them and say, let's go over the city ordinances, and one by one, as you violate them, you don't get to tomorrow to correct them, you'll be issued a ticket that day.
Boyles, come back to the microphone, please. You've heard comments from 3, maybe 4. Let me just go ahead and ask Ms. Robinson if she'd like to comment.
My only question regarding this is that when we passed the legislation, did we give them a time frame to get or to fulfill everything in the legislation? Did we give them a time frame?
I don't recall seeing a time frame.
Mr. Boyles, you
Give a 12-month period for normal building permits, but towers usually go up quicker than that. We've, of course, pulled the one in Indian Hills, and that one's on hold.
Let me make this suggestion, Mr. Boyles and Mr. Susky. It's good to see you here we wish on a temporary basis, but we look forward to working with you there for however many years that you choose to work with us, and we know that it will be productive however we are. So we want to express our appreciation for the manner that you conducted that campaign, and the people of North Little Rock are very proud to have been able to support you in your effort, and we just wish it'd been just a little bit more. I'm sure not as much as you and your family. So, we compliment you. We're glad you're here, and we look forward to working with you on whatever level that you're able to, and we're proud of you as our city attorney. With that, now, the business, you heard the comments of the council, fairly strong, at least several members of the council. While we don't want to get ourselves into any kind of legal trouble, we want to send a strong and forceful message, and we also want that message, as I hear it, so if anybody disagrees with what I'm asking the city attorney and our planning director to do, is to make sure that, that we take every step that is legally permissible to both not authorize any further permits, and at the same time, those that have been issued ensure that they are fully complied with in terms of the conditions. And that if we can shorten, and Robert, you hear this, if we can shorten the fuse, if we can make it any more, give us any more of an ability that once a permit's issued for us to be immediately responsive, or them to be immediately responsive, then we intend to do that. And I'm asking you, I'm sort of directing you to take whatever steps that make the fuse as short as we can, and let's try to work with them as a good neighbor. It appears that they have not been working with us as a good neighbor, at least those who are familiar with some of what they've done. So if the two of y'all, your office and the planning department, would work together, and anything you need from me or from this council, just prepare the legislation, or if I can do it absent the legislation, just give me the pathway.
Certainly, Mayor. And one piece of advice I'd recommend, in my understanding and recollection, these are special use permits. City council can revoke them.
Well, then we need to let them know that, that the council is upset enough to consider whatever options that we have, up to and including, a revocation also.
Mayor, the situation involved is that It's not Verizon doing the work, it's subcontractors hired by Verizon. And one of them almost has fun with joking with the neighborhood. And one up there behind Ridge Road, they told the neighbors, oh, it's going to be 175 foot. It wasn't 175, it was 115. And he thought it was a big joke to tell them that. And then they do all that digging up, and we have a city ordinance that says, if you do, you have to control the silt that runs off. Nothing happened, they didn't do it. And so, while I'm throwing stones at Verizon, it's really because of the subcontractors they hire that are in here to do it. And I'm assuming that's probably without any Verizon people here overseeing it.
Well, you know, and I know that, you know, I went over to an event over at the Little Rock Zoo that Verizon spent a nice little piece of change in sponsoring a big part of it, if not all of it. It just so happened that the regional director of Verizon is a graduate of Old Main, or the East Campus, I believe. Should have his card somewhere, but, you know, what we need to do, Robert, is for you to help me put together a letter letting the Verizon people know, you know, directly, and we can do it verbally, that, you know, while we can't take a swing at their contractors, you know, we intend to, but we might have to hit them, and we're not interested in doing that unless they're part of it, and only if they can't straighten it up.
Mayor, one last parting shot. We've been dealing with Verizon construction folks for some length of time at Indian Hills. They have done everything except what we have asked them to do. Now, I think they've stopped construction, but their tower is operable, and so they don't care whether they finish or not, and that aggravates me. I know that they want to put another tower in on JFK in the, what's it, Charlie, 4700 block?
Roughly.
Roughly the 4700 block, but, you know, I do not intend to vote for another Verizon tower until they clean their act up.
After their tower.
I think that makes 4 that have spoken, you know, and I don't hear anybody speaking in favor of them, so tell them that they've made an impression and it's not the kind they like, and that we're going to be vigilant, and all we expect is them to follow the law, and we're going to put them on a short fuse.
So if it's not completed by the next city council meeting, we can revoke the special use?
And I'll tell you what, let's do, you know, Mr. City Attorney, you know, find out whatever we've done and, you know, file separate pieces of legislation, put me on as a sponsor, and we'll just have those hanging. How's that sound?
Perhaps if we revoke the special use, we could turn off the power, then they couldn't use the towers until they can fix them. I don't know. Probably not possible, but that's certainly an issue.
Well, one thing we want to do is you know, I think if we don't get their attention through this conversation and the communications that we're going to have, both written and otherwise, you know, then, you know, obviously, whatever we do, we don't want it to be simply within the halls of this chamber. We want it to be acted on. And so, you know, we'll work with our code enforcement, our courts, our city attorney's office, and any other tools that we have to ensure that what this council does will be honored, as well as this mayor. And we look forward to that cooperation, and we sure will have it. Anything else on this matter? Motion to accept and file with guidance. On the motion?
Well, there's not a motion yet.
So moved.
All right. Motion, we accept and file with guidance.
Okay. Gibson?
Motion
Yes.
made and second, okay.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
All right. We've got a couple presentations, and I know it's listed where Jim Harvey's going to go first, but, you know, Jim, with your permission, I want to ask Nan to come up to the microphone. Nan Plummer, we all know Nan. She is the successor. Now, how many years, Nan?
3.5, sir.
3.5 years after Townsend Wolf is the director of the Arkansas Arts Center. A really exciting place. You know, this council has supported activities over there. It was in the budget again this year. I appreciate the council approving that budget. I think that we as a community get much more out of our Art Center than what we put into it, and even though we've been recent financial supporters, we're very proud of that, and we appreciate what you and the staff do, as well as all of the patrons and others that are a part of helping make the Art Center for a small state like Arkansas one that has big opportunities for all those who want to watch, learn, and listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I'm simply here briefly to say thanks to you and to the council collectively and to the City of North Little Rock for that support. It is an exciting time at the Arts Center. Your support has been, your name is on the Museum School, which is a very important way in to the activities of the Arts Center for an awful lot of people. Right now, our big news is about pursuing Picasso, but the Museum School is a big part of that. Our summer classes are themed to that, and if you'd been there last Friday night, you'd have seen 100 or so young people between the ages of 6 and 9 showing their Picasso-inspired artwork, including about a 6-foot-tall Eiffel Tower in papier-mâché. It was very exciting. We are looking to the future, and I think you'll be excited to be part of that as well. With some very generous private contributions, we've had a feasibility study done about expanding our museum school, not only spatially but in terms of its service. And one of the things we learned that did not surprise me is that North Little Rock is a bigger potential audience for us, and we have more service to do here, and that satellite locations are things we should explore. So not just our facility in MacArthur Park, but also branching out in other places are things that we will be looking at. So I wanted you to know that. I want you mostly to know how grateful we all are for your support, and I invite you to come see us. And please let me know if you plan to do that. And thank you again, and thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you, Nan, and again, we're proud to be a part of it, and we look forward to continuing to be a part of, both as a supporter and as a recipient for the work that the Art Center does. Jim Harvey. Jim, as you know, is the Director of Central Arkansas Water. We are very proud of the part that this city and this council had to play in the formation of Central Arkansas Water. How many years ago now?
It was July 1, 2001.
2001. And,
coming up on 5 years.
And the success of that, if you would in your report, maybe just kick it off with you know, what has happened, just not in detail, but in terms of customers, in terms of affiliates, you know, and how we've expanded over the last 5 years in being the foundation for, you know, for Central Arkansas in its water supply, and then just share with the council whatever you want to do, and then also, you know, you and I talked this morning, and I'll just get my little part out of the way. One of the things you see in communication number 1 that Jim sent us was how Central Arkansas Water, because of a third-party administrator, if I could put it that way, that those who pay online, there'll be a $3.95 charge. I know I pay through BankDraft. Obviously, again, people could, you know, show up and pay through whatever the normal channels are, but this $3.95 is a nice little charge for those who pay online. BankDraft will not change, and there will not be a charge associated with that. So those who want an automatic debit and not have to go to either the mail or to one of our offices, the bank drafts are absolutely the best way to do it. Now, I'll let you editorialize if I'm in error, but I just want to make sure that, you know, that our citizens know that those who pay online, that's a nice little kicker, but it'll be something that won't go to Central Arkansas Water. It'll go to the third-party administrator for online payments. Jim?
Well, that's exactly right, Mayor, and we have 1 out of 8 customers that do pay, as you do, automatic draft, and certainly that's a very good way to do. It's good for us, it's good for you. If you're mailing it in, you save the time and the stamp. We also still have the pay stations across both cities where people can go in to pay their bill. We still have the walk-in customer service, which is a little bit unusual now. We have one on this side of the river as well as on the south side. But 1 out of 8 customers, and we'd like to see that much higher. It's a good way to do it. But the other part is so many people like to pay by credit card, and we would like to do that. But the fact that we bill for other entities, we would have to shoulder that unless they would help us do it. If we could get the others to participate with us, we could lower that cost to $3.25, which would be borne by the entities, not the customer. So we're working toward that. But we do have several ways that customers can pay. And I will touch upon those things, Mayor, and they're in the presentation. This presentation was originally scheduled because of the low lake levels. You've heard all over the state, all over the country where they were having problems. We were never in any serious danger, and you'll see that shortly. But this is the logo that was developed with the merger. And what I like to emphasize is that "and" right there. Depend upon us today and tomorrow. We will be there tomorrow. We're planning for 50 and 100 years out. Well, this is an update on the water supply operations and the future source to the North Little Rock City Council. And with the council's permission, and you, Mayor, Steve Morgan is here, who is the Director of Regionalism and Future Source. And we'd like for him to make a small presentation later so you know what's going on with Mid-Arkansas Water Alliance. Well, we're going to talk about the water supply levels, operations, system improvements, and the future source. Now, you saw all of these things in the paper about the people that were having some real serious problems because of the drought, low levels. There were many of those, but you see at the bottom, we were not in that kind of a shape. Our lake levels, this shows the raw water supply, the amount of water that we have taken from the lakes over those years, and you can see there were 4 years there where it was we had some pretty wet weather, and we didn't take as much from the lakes. But now here's the interesting thing is Lake Winona. You see the red line there? That is the spillway level. That's when the lake is totally full. And right now the lake is at that second line there, minus 2.48 feet. Lake Winona, when it's full, it has 10 billion gallons of water, usable supply. And that by itself would last about 11 months. And you come all the way down to where we are, or the lowest that we got. The lowest we got was in January the 22nd. We were down to minus 17 feet. At that point, we still had 4 billion gallons in Lake Winona. And remember that Lake Winona is a much smaller lake than Lake Maumelle. Lake Maumelle, the spillway elevation, 290. And when it's full, there's 61 billion gallons storage there. The lowest we got was 6.5 feet, and at that level we still had 38.7 million gallons of usable water. Our average day, as you can see there, and in 2005 it was up. We used that in 2005, 23.9 billion gallons. This is the treatment capacity, and I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. If you have any questions, stop me and we'll talk about it. But the interesting thing is, with the lake level at Maumelle minus 6.5, we still had over 500 days supply in that lake with no conservation and no rainfall. And it did rain, and the lake got back up to almost an average level. Our operations and maintenance budget for this year was $34.4 million. Capital improvement, $25.8 million. And at this time, we have 289 employees. The capital improvements on the north side of the river, and you can see there from your individual areas the work that we've done. But since the merger, And into 2007, we've got some work that's online right now, about $6 million worth. But during that time, we have invested about $19 million on the north side of the river. And again, you can see from your individual areas. The common to all facilities, that means what we've done for pumping at Lake Maumelle. We've added a second intake. Some of you have seen that intake. You went on a tour with us and saw that. That just gives us that much more redundancy. We've added to the pumps as well. We've added more pumps. Another river crossing across the Maumelle River to get the raw water into town, and the Jack H. Wilson Water Treatment Plant. In looking at the rates for North Little Rock, on January 1, 2002, the average customer, the typical customer that's using 6,244 gallons a month paid $14.17. And you can see how that has dropped. It hasn't been drastic drops, but even more importantly than the drop that you've had is that this council had approved just before the merger that would have taken effect on January 1, 2002, $15.88 for that typical customer. That's about $2.29 less you're paying now because of the merger. Help to others, we established a policy of where we do put the coupons in the bill. You've seen those. People buy those, they pay for that. That money then goes to help needy customers. And since that was established in November 2004, River City Ministry administers that over here. We don't handle the money. And then the watershed on the south side. We have collected over $104,000, and you can see what went to each side of the river. $41,000 went to customers on the north side.
Now, tell me how we collect that, where that fund originate?
We essentially sell advertising, and we put that into the bill, and they pay us for that, and then the customers can use those to, and several of them have kept record of that, and it's been very successful. And so we see that increasing, that we'll actually get more money as we go along. On the north side of the river, we have assisted 366 customers, individuals, needy, elderly, that were having trouble paying their bills. On the south side, 567 for a total of 933 customers that we have helped that really needed the help. And those things are screened. In some cases, the cities request the help. But then those two agencies also have a very good record of determining who needs the money. Quality. We have completed our 32nd straight year of full compliance with the federal and state standards. Now that doesn't mean that we violated it before, but that's how long the Safe Drinking Water has been in effect. Our water quality is better than it has to be. We feel like that if we're just meeting the standards that we're polluting to the max. So we want to have water better than it has to be. This is our service area. You can see how far north it goes and to the south. And you'll hear some more about that in just a few minutes from Steve, talking about the 27 entities that we're partnering with right now for Future Source. This is our 10 largest retail customers. You can see that 4 of those are in North Little Rock. And interesting that those 10 are equivalent to over 12,000 residential customers. This is just some of the products that our water goes into, the folks that depend upon us for that quality. And the future dependability. Steve Morgan. Steve originally, before the merger, was assistant manager of the North Little Rock Water Department.
All
pardon the hitch here. I gotta move a little this technology around. Maybe we'll get it where we want it in just a second here. Okay, sorry about that delay. My name's Steve Morgan. As Jim said, I'm with Central Arkansas Water, served 33 years with the city of North Little Rock prior to the merger. And the interesting thing about being a part of the merger is, of course, there's an equalization of rates between both sides of the river. The second mission statement that people overlook so often of the time is to form regional partnerships to gain supplemental water in the future. Simply being, we sent out letters through Jim McKenzie at MetroBland asking, is there any interest with our neighboring utilities to see if we can go with a common pipeline to get additional water for the future? Okay, it's just that simple. You get an economy scale you couldn't achieve individually. So that's what we tried to do. Mid-Arkansas Water Alliance is made up of 27 water utilities that serve 750,000 people in the 8-county area around central Arkansas. We started in 2001. We made a request for water from the Corps of Engineers in 2003. And we're in 2006, and probably it's at our doorstep right now. We're going to have public hearings in September, early September, and we anticipate local district approval of our request to get water out of Greers Ferry and Lake Ouachita, hopefully by the end of this year, and then national headquarters approval next year. So what we've got here is a short video that we're thinking about for the people at Greers Ferry and Lake Ouachita, and it might give you more of a perspective, especially since 2005 was such a year of drought where sources were shrinking up and in some cases just dried up. So we'll go ahead and start this video. It only runs 9 minutes, but it might give you more of a regional perspective than what we can do because we're not short in this area. The visionaries at Little Rock prior to the merger built Lake Baumel and Lake Winona, so we're in good shape right now, but we can't sit back on our laurels. If you don't plan 50 years out in this business, you're in trouble. So we'll show this real quickly, and if you got any questions, I'll be glad to address them right afterwards. I'm not getting the play function.
Well, it was a good video. That's my battery there. You want me to work with it? Do you know how to do it? No, he can't get it past this plug button. You want me to work with it? Let's do it later.
Yeah, we'll do it later.
Steve, you want to ad lib a second or two, or do you want to just wait and we'll try to pull it back up as soon as?
Could we see if there's any questions, Mayor?
Yeah,
What we've done so far?
Any council member have any questions? Let me take a moment and talk about East Broadway, if I could, while we're talking about water. We all were hopeful that the East Broadway project would get underway this year, and there was a great deal of optimism that that would take place. As we were working with the utilities, the Highway Department indicated that they were ready to go as soon as the utilities were out of the way. gas. Of course, we removed our electricity a long time ago, telephone. All of those were in gear and are in gear yet to be gone by the end of August, with one exception, and that was our water department. We had been told that the highway department was considering allowing the water department to leave its 12-inch line in place, and if that had been the case, then they would not have presented a delay on us beginning the East Broadway project. However, for good, for bad, however you want to look at it, I look at it as an opportunity. There are two reasons that we're going to have some delay. First of all, we, not knowing what the highway department was going to require, nor at the same time did the water department know what they might want to do, this relocation had not been focused on intently, and that certainly we don't feel any fault of anybody's. But as they began looking at it very closely, Central Arkansas Water realized that several things, one of which is it wasn't in the budget for this year, but that it is a significant project should they decide to do it. And they have decided to go forward with the relocation of that line for a couple of reasons. One, it's a 12-inch line. It's lead joints, if not pipe, and that when they relocate it, they're also going to increase the size of it from our city. And I'll let Jim comment on any of this if he wants to in terms of why. I asked the question at the same time, gave what I thought would be the answer, which was confirmed, and that's that there's anticipated a need out there because of the future growth, because of opportunities that are taking.
Isn't technology wonderful?
Let me be. I'll try to be real quick on this, but and then we can get back to the program. But so the decision was made that they needed to, irrespective of what the highway department might require, that they needed to relocate that line. It was over 100 years old, and so both of the size being too small, as well as the length of time that had been in service. The decision was made to relocate it. Now, the way they're going to do this, and they're looking at routes. There are two railroad right-of-ways, one south of Broadway, one north of Broadway. There's also 2nd Street that, at least initially, seemed to be perhaps the more preferable route because it was minor in terms of relocation and cost. That will be a decision, if it's on 2nd Street, that the city, in addition to the water department, will make. We don't know if the right-of-way for those two rails, and there may be a third, or maybe a fourth, rather. But in any event, that decision in terms of what might be the best way or best place to relocate it is being studied, and we'll hope to have an answer within the next 30 days. The way they'll do it is they'll decide where to relocate it, then they'll start construction of the new line and have that in place and ready to go, and then they'll turn off, essentially switch, from the Broadway route to the whatever the alternate route is, and by and large abandon the line that's there in place. We have. I've talked to the director of the highway department, informed Mr. Flowers of that issue, and at the same time asked both the highway department as well as the water department to see how they might be best able to work together, and that we might be able to move this project, the road project of East Broadway, along as fast and as reasonable as possible, given the relocation effort and how they're going to do it, that the water department is now decided to do and will be engaged in. The water department can begin, are going to go through the steps of what they need to do so that they can actually begin construction on, during the month of January when the new budget goes into effect, and so we'll they assured me that they would take every step, including, specs, drawings, plans, bid the project, and work toward trying to actually begin work in January. Now, there's a meeting this Friday that the Water Department and the Highway Department are going to begin those discussions about coordinating the East Broadway project in light of what has to be done. So I wanted to take this moment while we were talking water to bring everyone up to speed on East Broadway, and particularly those two council members that this jurisdiction covers. So East Broadway is alive, it's well, and it was going to start this year, but because of this relocation, it may yet start this year, because again, the Highway Department assured me that, that they're going to move this forward as fast and as reasonable as possible. So, we're going to try to minimize as much as we know how the impact on the east side of our city with the construction of East Broadway as well as the relocation of that water line. And we're going to do everything. It's, the East Broadway project in total will probably take, from a highway standpoint, 2 years. And we're hoping that some way or another we can reasonably begin that as soon as possible and relocate that line as close to the same time, because we're looking at a couple years of disruption out there. But Lord, how long can I get these council members to give me an amen that we've been waiting for this to happen? So if anybody has any questions, feel free. But I thought this would be a proper time to bring you up to speed on the East Broadway project. Next year, something's going to start happening out there, water, roadway, or both, we hope.
Is there any part of it can be done without that water main being moved?
That's part of what they're going to be talked about. The water line itself won't be moved. Brand new one will be built, and then they'll turn one off and turn the other. I know that they've already relocated, for example, the water lines that are around the arena, and so the Highway Department was waiting to put that leveling of East Broadway here where we bought the berm and removed the bridge. Obviously, that could be done, but we're hopeful that be done when the arena is as minimally used as possible, and that's traditionally during the late spring and summer. So there's a lot of coordinating that needs to be done in this project to try to minimize the impact on the citizens and shorten and address the construction needs that are out there. And rest assured, that's the message that I've sent to both water and road, highway department, and I'm sure that they will try to do everything they can to minimize the impact, accelerate the construction, and get in and out of there just as fast as possible.
I think the gas company is now moving their lines.
Yeah, gas, and all of the rest of them, everybody else that has anything to do said they'd be out there in August, and this came up over the last, we've been really trying to push this project to get it started this year, because that's the only thing that was delaying it was the utilities, and then we came to the issue of the need to have a new water line out there and quadruple the capacity of it, and we're glad. We're glad that decision was made, and something that's been there 100 years. It's good to, to put a new one in there and ensure, the growth of the eastern part of the city for at least the next 100 years, we hope. With that, Mr. Morgan, the show's back yours.
We promised, we set this up and it ran perfectly before the meeting.
Well, it's getting a little bit of the city council chamberitis, I'm afraid.
It should be coming up shortly.
We can turn the volume down just a little bit.
Throughout history, whenever man has wanted to establish a settlement, one of the important factors was locating a source of good water. Today, while the need is equally important, the availability of water in central Arkansas is often taken for granted.
Most people have no idea that there's a shortage of water in Arkansas. And the drought of 2005 became a reality to us, with Brewer Lake being at its lowest point.
Our water capacity is just about
meeting its limits. And what I mean by that, we're able to produce up to 23 to 24 million gallons a day, not only with our production capabilities, but our water supplies are able to meet those type of demands. But our peak water demand last summer was at 22 million gallons a day, so we're just about at our limits right now.
In 2006, for the first time in our history, Conway Corporation had to ask the citizens of Conway to conserve water because of the supply limitation. We've had situations where we were limited on treatment capacity before, but never had a supply issue caused us to have to involuntarily conserve water.
The managers of 27 of these water systems, which serve 750,000 people in central Arkansas, are working together now to ensure that there is plenty of water for the next 25 years, when the area's population is projected to be more than 1 million people.
The Central Arkansas metropolitan area exceeded the national average growth rate during the last decade. I think we're around 13.4%. Some areas, some parts of the metropolitan area are growing much faster than others, and all of their public infrastructure is being taxed, but water primarily.
These water systems have joined together to form the Mid-Arkansas Water Alliance, or MAWA.
MAWA is the acronym for Mid-Arkansas Water Alliance. That's a consortium of 27 different water utilities, all seeking common sources of water for the future. The area that's covered by MAWA are 8 counties in the central part of the state, and in general geographic terms, they're from Conway to Heber Springs, back to the metropolitan Little Rock area, Hot Springs, and even over in Lolo County.
This organization has worked since 2001 with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Arkansas Soil and Water Conservation Commission, the Ouachita River Water District, and MetroPlant to develop a new water source.
The Mid-Arkansas Water Alliance really is a unique creature. And never in our experience have so many agencies and localities, large and small, come together for such a common purpose. And with the highest of standards in mind, too. I think it's a comment about the size and complexity of the issues facing us in terms of acquiring sustainable water supplies. But it's also a realization that by working together for a common cause, it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Our Mid-Arkansas Water Alliance is unique in that we've never seen interlocal agreements with this many water utilities before. You may have some smaller groups, 3 and 4 utilities, using a common source and working together for a common cause. But 27 utilities is almost unheard of. In fact, it is unheard of in our state's history. But everybody's working together well. The common goal is in sight, and we look forward to it being very successful and maybe showing the way for other utilities in the state as well.
While the people of Central Arkansas don't have concerns right now, these same water systems recognize that with the population growth of the past 20 years and the growth that is anticipated in the future, now is the time to work together to ensure that there is plenty of water to serve the area for years to come.
The Sardis Water Association is a groundwater system, deep wells. For over 30 years, we've seen a decline in our water table of more than 150 feet in the water table, and that's considered critical. We saw this need probably 15 to 20 years ago that with our growth, that trend was not going to change. And we saw a need to move toward acquiring supplemental water from another source besides groundwater.
Engineering studies have shown that the best places to obtain water are Lake Ouachita and Greers Ferry Lake. Both of these bodies of water are operated by the Corps of Engineers. When these lakes were built, among the purposes was to provide a good drinking water supply. In the beginning, the primary reasons for the lake were to control floods and generate electricity. Since then, the lakes have become an important part of their local economies as recreation facilities. All of these uses, though, would be virtually unaffected should the Corps of Engineers allow MAWA to take water from these lakes. The model request is to take an average of 20 million gallons of water a day from Lake Ouachita and 15 million gallons a day from Greer's Ferry. Sure, this sounds like a lot of water, and it is, but there is so much water in these lakes, it would have virtually no effect.
Well, in a time of drought, we don't believe that this is going to have an impact on the lake, and the reason for that, again, is that the Corps will be holding more water back in the lake to accommodate the MAWA's allocation request, and that's where our water would come from. So even in the time of drought, it shouldn't have an impact on the lake. What we are taking out of the lake is the equivalent of an eyedropper in a 5-gallon bucket.
But if you take Greer's Ferry Lake and you were to close it off into a closed system where no water came in through the tributaries and no water went out through the dam, we would drop the lake 1 inch in a year.
In fact, Mother Nature herself takes much more water than this from the lakes each day.
To give you some perspective on the allocation that we're requesting, it's 15 million gallons per day of firm yield. It's my understanding evaporation at Greer's Ferry Lake is about 43 million gallons per day, and that the hydropower take is about 1.9 billion gallons per day. So you can see that it's a very small amount, and the purpose for the water is extremely important because you're talking about the health and safety of the population of Central Arkansas.
The amount of water that we're requesting out of the 2 core lakes is very, very small, about 0.5%. There's probably 100 times more used for hydroelectric generation than what we're requesting. We're not going to have any significant impact on the lake levels up there, and I know that's a major concern of the property owners and recreationals, but we're just not going to have any significant impact with this request. The water level is primarily not going to change in the 2 core lakes because in the case of Lake Ouachita, there's 125 million gallons per day that's lost to evaporation during the summertime. We're requesting 20 million. So you can see that the evaporation is 6 times higher than what our request is if we were to gain all of that 20 million gallons that we're requesting.
Simply put, the people who use these lakes, whether it be for boating, fishing, scuba diving, or anything else, won't see any change in the water level or the water quality. If anything, the water level could rise a few inches, but not enough to be noticed by anyone.
The Corps of Engineers more or less will allow the more water to be held back within the flood pool, and that's where our allocation would come from. So by doing that, it has appears to have no impact on recreational usage or the hydropower industry because the water that they're using right now would still be there. We will not be dipping into their buckets, you might say. And it's our understanding also by talking to some of the marine operators that they would prefer a little more water in the lake.
Water systems in this area, whether municipal or regional, are able to provide assurances to residents that when they turn on the tap, plenty of good, clean water is going to come out.
Our goal in this project is to provide water for people, our children, our grandchildren. And to do that, we have an opportunity to get Arkansas Water Alliance and the efforts that we're making to see that our future generations have an adequate supply of water for their future.
like guitar playing, Mr. Morgan, but if that's enough, any council member have any questions?
I guess the only question I had, you are working with that Grand Prairie system out there in our part of the world?
We're working with all of them in areas. Grand Prairie is one of them, yes, sir. It is. And we're going to have a template resolution as the core process for getting this water allocated out of the two core lakes moves forward. We mentioned we're going to be going to public hearings, and that's a public comment period. We've got some templates that we're going to use for getting some resolution of support, and we want to pass that in front of y'all. We're going to pass one in front of Little Rock and others. Other cities around you, virtually every major city and every major water association is part of it. So you'll probably be seeing that come to you in the next 30 days. But that's just saying you support our partnership effort of trying to go get this supplemental water, and we'll go from there.
Let me just kind of have, Jim, you may want to comment on this too real quickly. I know we have a problem with Grand Prairie in terms of our fire flows and trying to move forward with adding, if I recall, you and I visited about that, and we're talking to them, but we're really not making a whole lot of progress. Now, if you want to add to that, or Steve, whoever can.
Yes, sir. We received a copy of a letter from Randy Young. Just wrote it on the 22nd, received it today, urging us to get back together, not us, but the integral parties in that, to get back together and open the dialogue again and not resort to court, because they don't have a working solution the way it is right now. And that was in his letter, so we think that's a positive.
Because I know we have areas out in our area that they'd like to develop, but Grand Prairie can't supply the water. They can't do it.
And that's what this addresses. So more or less, Randy Young and Soil and Water, it's been a big supporter of MAWA too. It's just saying, let's get back together. What you have is not a workable model, so let's build on it.
And if we can't through negotiations, I know there's discussions by several, one developer out there about resorting to court action, and I hope we can avoid that. But we're not in the driver's seat on that in some respects, but we certainly do support a workable solution to help our city grow. We're in a congressional roadblock out there with with what was perceived to be the law and how we want to try to grow.
And in talking to that attorney this morning, he's just hoping that Grand Prairie's open to discussions. He certainly is.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public hearings. Next one on the agenda is 7:05, amending solicitations. I think and by the way, let me first of all tell you how good it is to be back home after a longer time away than I would have probably liked. It was very busy and a very productive time, but there's no place like home. And I want to thank Alderman Height for conducting the last council meeting. I understand that it was gavel was banged with Alderman Gibson and I both absent. The gavel was banged after 45 minutes, perhaps even a little less. So thank you, Alderman, and for conducting the council, and thank the rest of the council for taking care of business and keeping things cooking while some of us were out of town.
Mayor, you're certainly welcome. We didn't try to break Alderman Berry's record that night.
With that, and if there's not an objection, we might as well deal with 0659. That's kind of what we have a tendency to do. So, Alderman Height, this is your legislation. I think there's an amendment.
Yeah, we have an amendment, Mayor, and we also have a public hearing.
Yeah.
Want to do the amendment first, or?
No. Let's do the public hearing, and then we can call the legislation and deal with the amendment at that time. That's kind of how we normally do it. With that, let me go ahead and ask Alderman Height, since it's his legislation, to introduce the public hearing, and then we'll ask for any comments, and then we'll deal with the legislation. Alderman Height.
Thank you, Mayor. As I stated last council meeting, this legislation deals with the people that have been soliciting on street corners, not only in my ward but in other parts of the city. And so I wanted to offer a public hearing tonight to hear from anyone that has any positive or negative comments about this legislation, and kind of hear what the city, how they're thinking or ticking as far as allowing solicitations on our busy street corners.
Public hearings convened without introduction. Anyone care to address the council? Microphone's open. Yes, ma'am. Come on up, and Pat, tell us who you are and what your comments are. We know, but those folks at home may not. I said, we know who you are, but those folks at home may not.
Well, I'm Patricia Harris, and I live in Rose City. But 5 days a week, I'm a volunteer for the North Little Rock Police Department. So I travel the streets quite often, and primarily Broadway. For several weeks now, when I get to the intersection of Locust and Cypress, there are people out there walking. I think it was Thursday that I was sitting in traffic. I was a little late coming home. It was around 5 o'clock. And I was sitting directly in front of Alltel. Next thing I thought, I don't have a radio on. I turned to the left and I rolled the window down. And this heavy-set man, he had a white shirt and tie, a blue hat, and something on his hat. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, we're out here collecting money. And I said, who for? And he said, I said, sir, do you know the traffic that you're standing in? I said, if I was to run over your foot, I said, I wouldn't. The age I am, I wouldn't be able to get insurance. I said, if you're out here collecting money, why don't you just mail me something, and if I have the money, I'll send it to you. Well, I went on around the corner, went up to Taco Bell and turned around and just watched. Well, they were on the corner of the flow of traffic going north and going south. And they were walking up and down the streets. So I called the comp center and asked them to have an officer to come out. Well, due to the fact that I had to get home, I just went on home. So on Friday afternoon, about 6 o'clock, the same thing was going on. So I called comp center again. Well, this afternoon, at 5 o'clock, I was sitting right in front of Alltel, and it was a tall, skinny man, but he had on one of our jackets, like for the cleanup, and I thought, it must be for the city. And he was walking right down the yellow line, hitting traffic on either side. Now, when I could ease over, I eased over and I parked over in front of the Exxon station there and just sat and watched him. And then I got on my cell phone and I called the comp center and I described him, and they assured me they would send somebody out. Well, I went on up the street a ways and turned around and come back. And got back in the same traffic, and I was sitting in front of Alltel. Well, here he came up and knocked on my window. I rolled my window down, and I said, sir, do you have a permit? He said, oh, yes, ma'am. And I said, may I see it? He said, that lady over yonder's got it. So I called the comp center, and here I am. I want to tell you, I'd have no objection around Christmas time that our firemen can take their boots out and collect money to help whatever organization they're helping. Most of it is children at Christmas time. But this is dangerous. Our insurance is high enough and the traffic is so bad at that intersection to hold it up. People trying to watch the cars in front of them, the angry driver. That's just too much. If they need to collect money, they just need to be like Brother Paul. They need to have fish supper and collect the money that way. I thank you very much.
Thank you, too. I think a lot of us will probably agree with that. The microphone's still open? Going once, going twice. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the public hearing. Alderman Height, and unless there's an objection, and if you choose, let's go ahead and call the legislation.
All right, and we have an amendment.
I understand.
So let's call the legislation and have them read it.
This is an ordinance amending section of Chapter 74 of the North Little Rock Municipal Code relating to solicitations on and near public streets. Second reading.
You want to take it to the third reading? before
We
do
can
that?
take it to the third reading and then
We
introduce
suspend
the
rules
amendment.
and place it on third reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion to suspend?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson. Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
This is an ordinance amending sections of Chapter 74 of the North Little Rock Municipal Code relating to solicitations on or near public streets. Third and final reading.
All right, we've got discussion. I know Alderman Height and/or Witcher, somebody has an amendment. I saw it circulated around. Why don't we get a motion, go ahead and get a motion for adoption on third and final, and then it'll be available for amendment. So,
Move for adoption.
is there a second? All right, motion made and seconded, now it's before the council. Who wants to address the amendment?
I can, well, this, I guess, with the help of Alderman Witcher today, we've had the city attorney's office draft us an amendment that basically, in essence, would make it unlawful for any person to solicit a donation or offer to sell any item or service on a public street. So in essence, would ban solicitations in the city of North Little Rock on public streets.
You know, normally I don't editorialize. I know this council realizes that, but I think, you know, in terms of the danger out there, I know Ms. Harris spoke to that, and I would have to agree. I don't know that there's any way that anyone could collect in our streets with the kind of conditions that we have, that wouldn't pose a danger to them, to those that are driving, and certainly put a real strong burden on our department to try to deal with any kind of issues that are surrounding that. I know that we don't have a choice, and I appreciate what Ms. Harris said, but you know, the city attorney's office can comment on this. We can't permit, you know, without some general categorization, some people to collect, i.e., for example, our fire department, and then not permit others. But I know I've checked with your office, and it's my understanding that this is something that we could do that's legal. It's a public safety issue as well as a solicitation or contract issue, you know, that if we do it in the way that this amendment is suggesting, that, while there's some that may argue it's free speech, this is something entirely different.
That's correct, Mayor. The U.S. Supreme Court has spoken about door-to-door solicitations, but clearly somebody walking in the middle of the street impeding traffic, a safety risk to themselves and other motorists is not protected, in our opinion.
Now, one of the things real quick, and in talking to Jason a little earlier, and if you've got any different thoughts on this, Paul, I'd appreciate it, but I had always thought that there was a prohibition against roadway solicitation. I know that you know, rightly or wrongly, after 9/11, I told the fire department that I thought exceptions could be made. I know that there had been some review, and that was not discovered. The discovery was that we, at least at this point, we couldn't find anything that prohibited that.
My recollection is years ago one was adopted, and when we subsequently recodified the code book, it was not included, so therefore it was deleted because it wasn't part of it.
Mayor, I've had, and then Alderman Richard, I've had several emails, I've had several phone calls in support of banning solicitations in North Little Rock, of which one was, it's my knowledge that even the North Little Rock Police Department is in favor because of the safety issue of us banning solicitations on public streets. I have not heard from the fire department, but I have heard from the police department. And so everyone that I have had been in contact with or has contacted me has been in favor of us doing away with the solicitations because of a safety issue.
Do you have a motion then on your amendment?
Okay. Well, he's made that, Mayor, but I have a quick question for Mr. Susky.
All right.
Do we have a conflict between Section 5 and Section 8? We're giving 30 days to revoke permits.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
It's saying it goes into effect immediately, but if you have an existing permit, you have 30 days for your permit to expire.
Okay.
Mayor?
Put it this way, Section 5 wouldn't even go into effect if there wasn't an emergency clause.
Mayor?
Alderman?
Mr. Suskis, is it necessary to give them 30 days' notice?
I mean, we could do less if you like.
Well, let's go back up, though, into the previous, and I'm assuming the strikeouts up above are out of the existing.
Yes.
It says, this permit shall not promptly bear the statement, this permit does not authorize the obstruction of traffic or violation of Arkansas Code 571-214. I'm not sure why these people who are walking out in traffic aren't violating that already, number one. Number two, under D, not every one of these people are wearing a photo ID. And so they have violated, as far as I'm concerned, 2 sections of our existing law. And I'm willing to give them till Saturday to get out of here.
I'm willing to give them till tonight.
How about midnight?
I mean, as soon as we can get out there and get them, just tell them that there's no longer legal, but I don't want to give them 30 days. I mean, it's moved much past the intersections now. You can't, there are certain businesses at some of these intersections, you can't get out of your vehicle, i.e. Walgreens, without them sticking the can in front of your face.
Well, is there a reason?
Wrong with 8:30?
No, just a second.
Is there a reason that we couldn't make it beginning July 1st?
The question would boil down to how quick Ms. Whitby could get it published in the Times. It's essentially, since this is criminal in nature, it's not in effect until it's published in the North Little Rock Times.
Well, there are 2 approaches. One, I think Alderman Gibson's comments probably ought to be heeded by I see our chiefs out there now, along with the code office, in terms of violating whatever the existing law might be, number one. And number two, you know, I certainly would support the beginning of that. I think our Times goes to press tomorrow, or actually Wednesday afternoon. So we would ask Ms. Whitby, and I'm sure she could handle that, to have that in the Times by this Thursday. Alderman Height?
The deleted items in that Alderman Gibson was referring to was in the new legislation.
But wasn't that in the old legislation also? No?
It was deleted, correct?
Yeah, that was the language for the
See,
new
what
legislation.
happened, years ago, we had a law that said you couldn't do this. Somewhere in the recodification, it disappeared. I go back to a J.C.'s collecting. We had to go in and ask special city council permission in 1970 to do a deal. So somewhere along the line, the existing law. But there's got to be something on the books that says you can't impede traffic. I mean, I don't care if it's a jaywalking ordinance or something. Those people are absolutely in the middle of traffic. They're a hazard to the people, and they're a hazard to themselves.
So then basically the discussion then is Section 5 has to do with the period of time that we allow them to keep their...
Someone suggested July 1.
Existing permits.
And it cannot be, that period of time cannot be less than what it would take to get it into the Times.
That's
Well,
correct.
let me...
So I have the motion, I make the motion, and we insert July 1 in there.
Well, tell you what, let's, hold on just a second. Let's make sure, why don't we go ahead and amend it, and then we can deal with an
Okay.
amendment, because it's an amendment to an
You're
amendment.
right.
So
I'm
why don't we
saying-
go ahead, and I'll take Alderman Height's motion, Alderman Butcher's, well, Alderman Berry's second, that this amendment, and then let's change it once it gets in there. There's a motion, second. Any discussion on the amendment, on the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Berry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
All right, now the motion, now we have the amendment that is in place, so, you know, any amendments to the amended legislation?
Are we dealing with the date, like,
Well, that's what we discussed. Now, right now, we're not dealing with anything because nobody's made a motion, but I think we got one alderman scratching over there, so.
Scratching, and they either that these permits issued by the city of North Little Rock allowing solicitation in a manner that is impermissible under Section 4 hereby revoked. Now, we could say hereby revoked July 1, period.
Hereby revoked effective July 1.
July?
Well, hereby,
I'm against July 1. I'm for the legislation, but we're talking about permits that we've given people to solicit, and we've given them these permits, and now here today is Monday, and we're going to revoke it Saturday.
Well, the one thing I think some of us are worried about is that if somebody got hit, hurt, killed, or injured, between now and when we try to do this, then I think some of us may be concerned about that. I think they are entitled to notification, and I think that we would ensure that that be done in the press, as well as actually going on site when we see these and let those folks know.
And no one, they won't be arrested, right? We're just going to notify them that we've passed legislation effective July 1.
Well, that's true, and I would also ask the police, for the first, even afterwards, if they haven't received notification, if they hadn't read the press, we're not out here to try to, to wrongly penalize somebody. We're out here to try to get people out of harm's way.
I understand.
So what I would hope that we do is, if there are some instances where people are found doing this after July 1st, that they are informed that they're illegal, and if they don't cease, then that's when we write them a citation. But if they do stop, then fine. We don't try to penalize them. We'll give them one bite at the apple, if you want to say that. But after that, if they don't leave, or if they're found back, that organization, then they're subject to a fine.
Okay.
Now, that would be my administrative way to enforce that, and I'd just tell you that on the front end, that we warn them all we can, that it goes into effect on July 1st, and then if they're out there afterwards, we give them a chance to leave, and if they don't, we write them a ticket.
Mayor, that is 2006, isn't it?
That's correct.
It's 12:01 a.m.
12:00, I was going to suggest that.
on July the 1st, 2006.
Is that the motion?
That's the motion.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded that this go into effect 12:01 a.m., July 1st, 2006.
Let's get this one voted on. I believe he's got another one.
Okay.
No, this is it. My recommendation, after word revoked in Section 5, add effective July 1st, 2006, and delete the remainder.
Well, we need to put the time in, too, 12:01 a.m.
I don't want to, and delete the remainder.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's your motion, Alderman?
Actually, that's my motion.
All right. Is there a second to that?
Second.
motion? Any discussion on the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
Mr. Wadley, do I see you back there? I certainly do. So you and the chief are aware of what we did, and Ms. Whitby will see if we can get that in the...
We got to vote.
We're not through yet, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we...
Oh, that's right, we hadn't voted as amended.
Yeah, I move for adoption as amended.
Second.
You're absolutely right. Any discussion on the motion to adopt as amended?
Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
And the one thing I'm sure that this council doesn't want to say, and that is that whatever reasonable and honorable, beneficiaries of these solicitations, we're still, if people are so interested, to consider them and donate. The good-heartedness of the citizens of North Little Rock is well known. We just want to get them out of danger and out of possible hurting themselves and others. Alderman Berry?
I'd like to go one better if we could. There's not enough information on this organization for me. I'd like to figure out who they are and why they're here from another state. Is there any way we can investigate that?
They had to file, didn't they have to file a copy of their nonprofit or something to get a solicitation permit?
It's with Mr. Reagan's office. They do have to file their nonprofit, and there are a few other requirements.
I mean, there's not enough organization, there's not enough information on their buckets for me.
Well, let me just ask this. I know Mr. Sisson, who broke his knee in a couple of places, is over in the over in my office, the conference room. I'll just ask. Well, no, Stephanie. I'll just ask Stephanie if you could work with Mr. Reagan. He's our internal auditor to ensure that the permit process is reviewed and that whatever information we have on this group, we maybe work with the police department and/or code and see if we can verify some of this, and then if there's some discrepancies, check with the city attorney's office to see if there's any legal action that would be prudent. Okay?
Mayor, if I might get one last word, I'd like to quote Alderman Witcher. Thank you, alderwomen and aldermen. Thank you.
We all needed Alderman Witcher quoted. We appreciate that, Alderman Height. All right, next item, I think we're ready to go to the regular calendar. Are we, Ms. Whitby?
Yes, sir. Resolution 0677, Mayor Hayes.
Please pull it in suggestion or recommendation from the code office. We're going to pull that.
Okay. Resolution 0678, Mayor Hayes.
Pull that, please, also under the same request.
Resolution 0688, Alderman Gibson.
Call it, please.
A resolution appropriating $20,000 from the general fund for the Code Enforcement Department's demolition and debris removal program.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Ordinance 0646, Mayor Hayes.
Yeah, we're gonna deal with somewhat of a companion that, really will underline the need for us to deal with this issue, but it's gonna be, after, thought and some, input, and rather than hold this and attach something to it, I'm just gonna go ahead and withdraw this and try to bring something back as soon as is practical. So withdraw that, please.
Ordinance 0649, Alderman Gibson.
I'm going to hold that until next meeting, but I will present it next meeting with the exceptions that we discussed, changing to horizontal curbs and excluding or exceptions for the service vehicles required for maintenance and for vehicles for a move-in or a move-out. And I'll bring that back at next city council meeting.
Ordinance 0657, Alderman Parker.
I'd like to hold that till our next meeting also. There's a few unresolved issues I'd like to discuss.
660, Mayor Hayes.
06 what?
60.
Please call it.
This is an ordinance accepting the annexation of lands commonly described as lands to be titled the Volga Lake Annexation to the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, and make a Volga Lake annexation a part of the city of North Little Rock. Second reading.
Unless there's a
Are we ready to
reason,
move
Mr.
forward? Do we have to hold a public hearing on these or anything?
I don't think so,
Move
Mr.
suspend rules, place on the third reading?
Third reading, here's second. On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance accepting annexation of lands commonly described as lands to be titled the Volga Lake Annexation to the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, and making Volga Lake annexation a part of the city of North Little Rock. Third and final reading.
On the question?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
New business, Resolution 0689, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution declaring certain buildings, houses, and other structures located at 624 West 35th Street in the city of North Little Rock to constitute a public nuisance and condemning said structures, providing a period of time for property owner to abate said nuisance.
Let me call a public hearing on that. I think that's what the city attorney would ask and would require. So let me open public hearing on 624 West 35th Street, a condemnation of that site. The purported owner is Kathy Nunn and/or Rose Corder, C-O-R-D-E-R. Anyone here that cares to comment on this condemnation, please come to the microphone. The public hearing is open. Going once, going twice, public hearing's adjourned. Do I have a motion?
Move for adoption.
Second. On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Resolution 0690, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a second amendment to the real estate contract with P&R Properties.
There is a requirement again that a public hearing, no, wait a minute, second amendment. Let me, just real quickly, I'll ask for the adoption of this. Many will recall that P&R Properties. This has to do with the construction of office and condominium space. I believe 16 condominiums on top of office. Originally, we were going forward with this in stages, but Mr. Peroni's indicated that he'd like to go forward with the entire project. They're going to need a little additional real estate, and this adds that real estate to this. The cost is the appraised value of a per square foot value, and I would ask the council to move and adopt this. We think this is a great addition to our city.
Move for adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman?
I guess you answered it. The only reason for it is they need additional land.
Some additional parking is what it was discovered that they needed. So that's essentially what it is for the moving forward with the entire development. Any other questions? Motion made.
Mayor,
Second.
no,
I'm sorry.
So they're going to buy, they're not going to buy all the way to 6th Street.
Mr. Smith out there? Yeah, he's in here. Okay.
That's correct, Alderman. They stop about 60 foot short of 6th Street. They're going to go back an additional lane of parking. I don't know the exact dimensions, but they've added some two-bedroom condos to the complex, and that required them to have a few more parking spots. So Mr. Peroni wanted to add additional private parking for those condo owners.
Well,
Is that 28?
Wait a minute, Alderman.
well, you know, it's going to be a real interesting situation because what happens is that, number one, I have a real concern that the public garden now, and if anybody who visited downtown last Thursday night and saw several hundred people who enjoyed an event but was beside the library/history building. And I understand that what we're doing in doing this is that we've got a history commission and a library with a back door that we made it basically impossible to get to when we do this.
No.
How are they going to get there?
The garden on the side is still there. Nothing's changed.
But they have purchased it, and they purchased the parking behind it.
Right, and we have an agreement with them that the garden or patio on both sides of the buildings will be available for public access until later on in the evenings, say 10 o'clock, which we won't have any functions that late.
No, we won't have functions that late. That's not in this agreement, though.
It's not in the legislation that you're looking at right now. It's in our buy-sell.
So I'm going back to my discussion. How are you going to get to the back end? I guess you could come down 6th Street, go all the way around, and then back in. If this parking stays like it is, there's...
I'm not sure which
Well,
map you're looking at, but our plans are to take the entire, the money from the sale of that property, which is owned by the Public Building Authority, and it will go to develop the parking that will service the two retail areas, the library and the History Commission, along with what we hope to be a new restaurant at 6th and Main and a new restaurant at 7th and Main.
Now, but we're not developing parking on the shaded area that they're buying.
They will pay for theirs, we'll pay for ours.
But you're basically closing an entire alley except 25 feet.
Right, that alley's closed right now with Bob Harden's. We shut that alley down when Bob Harden added on.
Well, but we've also, because we own the rest of the property, we have the option to do what we want to, because the original plan didn't close the alley, and they also didn't buy the land behind it. So this increases, but they're not going all the way to 6th Street even with this one.
That's correct. We're working on a development that'll go right next door to these condos right now. That will fill in that space between the condos and the corner where the trolley goes in to the trolley barn. And I've got a meeting tomorrow with another developer on the 7th and Main property, of which our plans are to do something very similar, that we'll sell them the property and then take the money and develop the parking that will service all those retail stores there on Main Street.
Mr. Voyles, you got something to add?
I would like to add, The subdivision committee reviewed this Wednesday. We're requiring a temporary drive from Fifth Street up into that parking lot. So behind their private parking will be a public parking area. Can you see it on the chart? Only half the parking lot is shown as private. Remainder will be available for the public. You can get to that from Fifth Street or Sixth Street.
Well, I see that, but look here, how are you going to get...
Where is the Sixth
How are
Street?
you going to get into here? You
I mean, the
gonna
Fifth
turn
Street.
and back a truck up there,
Egress there.
around all that?
Well, come on back up here. We need
You know,
to
I mean,
make
there-
sure
you
everybody's
got-
clear on
You
that.
got a situation here that, you know, to bring books, exhibits, and everything else in the back of here, they come in here. If this restaurant's here, it's going to make it even worse to try to back up into there. And you got, the other thing that's in there, obviously they're not going to build on top of it, but every utility runs down the center of that alley.
Is the Fifth Street entrance not shown in the back of the parking lot? Because I don't see where it's at.
What's that now?
It's not drawn. You see where it says proposed restaurant?
Yeah.
It would be just east of that, and it would come into the back part of that parking lot, and then where the trolley goes in, Sixth Street, of course, you'll always be able to drive in there unless there's a trolley in the way.
But we're retaining easements where the old alley was.
Yeah, and you're right, Alderman, there is a sewer line that runs right down the middle of that alley, so...
Sewer line, gas
So all it'll
line,
be is
telephone
parking.
line, and high line wires, everything run down through there. And so I was just amazed that we would actually sell that piece of property, that section of it, because previously, when we discussed it, we weren't crossing the alley with this sales. We were going to build the entire parking lot, and they would be able to use it.
Well, if we did it that way, we couldn't reserve them private parking. You know, we looked into that when we tried to do it for the Baker House and found that we couldn't reserve public parking for private entities. So that's when we had to sell them the property. We'll retain the easement, but sell them the property so that they can make those reserved for their condo owners.
Can't we, by city ordinance, specify reserved parking areas?
We can't take public property and let it be used solely for private purposes.
So those people who, over a period of time, have put up parking signs that says parking for ABC only, those are illegal?
That's right. One
Okay.
owner downtown
So if I
has-
park in one of those, they can't enforce it? Okay.
Matter of fact, a local business downtown, when Alltel came in, towed somebody off, and I instructed them to pay for it, or they're going to face legal action from the city, and they paid for the towing charges.
Okay. Well, I've given you my thoughts, and, you know, if you stick a restaurant in there, and you're trying to back up to deliver anything into the History Commission or into the back of that library, you're totally blocked.
Well, the retail store is going to be a deli, so I don't see a whole lot of big trucks coming in to service a deli. The other retail store will be a retail store, and where your big traffic is going to be would be on the 6th and Main corner and 7th and Main corner, where you're going to have a real full-scale restaurants.
I failed to explain myself.
Okay.
We have overhead doors in the back, or have doors in the back of the North Little Rock History Commission building to be able to bring in exhibits. The other things, obviously, I guess that we could open up those doors up front, but that's not made to be open, to bring things in there. But if you look at this plan, you've got, that's a 10-foot alley. There is a 10-foot space back there with virtually no way to get back to it. And I will share mine with you. I mean,
I don't see it being a problem. I mean, if we don't have a problem in the alley behind City Hall, I don't think we're going to have a problem there, because we've got two fairly good-sized restaurants sitting right here.
Yeah, but the alley goes through behind. You're not having to Joe, I don't think you understand what I'm looking at here, and I know you don't have it in front of you, but you basically are blocking access to the back of the North Rock History Commission building. And we do this, and I want to share that concern. See?
Alderman, I hear what you say, but I'm looking at a map and I don't see, I don't see how they're doing that.
Well,
It looks like that, if I'm not mistaken, the private parking is already, that we already authorized, essentially blocks, it doesn't block any more or less, that we already okayed before this addition is being requested. Am I missing something?
well, I think I'm looking here, Mayor, if you see the North Little Rock History Commission building, you got a 10-foot alley, 10 foot past that alley, you got parking places. And this space between these two buildings, that's closed.
Well,
and so to get something,
He's talking about these. Take the parking places away from right there.
is make it load only there, and they're still going to have to come in here and back up into there, but at least they can do that. Fine enough, okay.
Now, how big is that alley between Harding
Because you've got a
and Grace?
restaurant here, and that restaurant's going to have a dumpster. They can't have a dumpster on the street, so you're going to have a dumpster some back here for it. I don't know if they use a dumpster or not. They currently have one sitting right here in the middle of the alley.
I think we'll be fine. How many times are they going to use that? Not a whole lot, but if we just block that off for loading only, that's pretty good space right there.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay, where are we, Ms. Whitby? Any other questions?
And it stays at $10 a square foot.
Any other questions?
And we're only going to develop the public parking section of this, not the private parking.
I'm 99% sure that's correct. We've renegotiated this thing 2 or 3 times, but I believe that's right.
I think there's a very clear situation. We can't develop private parking in the city with Malin, so I know the Public Building Authority can do some things the city can't do.
Right.
Okay, but because...
If that's not the case, I'll let you know.
Because it's, I don't know how much asphalt costs now, but it could cost us as much to pave that one section as we get for that one section.
Yeah, unless things have changed, my recollection is that, that we were going to do our parking and they were going to do theirs.
That's my recollection also.
Where are we, Ms. Whitby?
It's a motion to adopt and a second.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
Resolution,
Before we go on, let me tell the council, we're working right now on the, parking for the ballpark, and how to handle our 7 acres. The issue of parking will be, I hope, an ongoing opportunity for us as our downtown area develops. There's going to be some pain, there's going to be some times when we have to adjust how we've done business in the past, but I would just suggest that we look to the development that's occurred on the south side of the river, and there are, opportunities and challenges over there. So, this is, and I appreciate Alderman Gibson spending the time and looking at this, but this will be an ongoing opportunity, and I'm glad, to be honest with you, that we're having this kind of, these kind of growing pains. If we had the kind of vacant parking that we've had in the past, and we weren't worrying about this, then we wouldn't nearly have the things taking place downtown that we are. So this will not cease, and I frankly hope it gets worse.
Resolution 0691, Mayor Hayes.
All right, let me see what that is. I think I know. Please call it.
A resolution accepting a bid to provide wholesale power to the City of North Little Rock, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute documents.
Have we got any documents that are ready to attach, Mr. City Attorney? I know that Mr. Gertz came up and...
Let's move that to the end of the agenda and do the...
Excuse me?
May we move that to the end of the agenda and go ahead and do everything else?
It's fine with me.
I'll second that motion.
All right. You don't have much more to go. So there's been a request, Mr. Gertz, I know that you carried some stuff down to the city attorney's office. We obviously need to get that up here. And let's deal with the rest of the agenda while that's being done. Ms. Whitby, next item.
Resolution 0692, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution amending the City of North Little Rock 2002 Annual Action Plan in regard to Community Development Block Grant Program.
Move for adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
We got a couple
Fill in the
blanks.
blanks.
We got a couple blanks. Ms. Bowman, are you out there? I think we want to put, was it $20,000?
We're reallocating $24,460.22.
All right. If you would substitute that amount plus where we're getting it,
We're giving it to Habitat for Humanity
I know who we're giving it to, from.
from Pennebaker Center for Adults to Habitat for Humanity.
All right, and in speaking with Mr. Smith, who may not be in the room, I believe, who has contacted the Pennebaker Center, and you maybe can speak for him too. I don't know, maybe you contact them.
No,
and
Mr.
that
Smith
they are understanding that they weren't going to use that money this year and didn't interpose any objection.
Right, that's correct. And we have someone here from Habitat too, if
Who's here from Habitat?
Candace Harris.
All right. Let me ask that any member of the council make those two amendments.
Second.
All right, motion made
so
and
moved.
seconded that the amount, and say that one more time. You got it, Ms. Whitby?
Yes, sir.
All right, why don't you say the amount?
$24,460.22.
And from,
Pennebaker Center.
there's motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? On the motion to amend, Ms. Whitby?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Now adopt as, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Alderman Berry, but you can tell, if I'm not mistaken, is Mr. Bill Plunkett still the director?
He is.
Yes.
He was one of the wildest cats alive in the class of '65, and he's now the director of Habitat, which is quartered, I know, out of Little Rock, but he's really making an effort. We want to plug again, and maybe Alderman Berry was going to do that, so I'll let you go ahead and do it.
Yeah, they have their retail store that's open in Pike Plaza, and it's open on, can you give us the hours? Or do you, I didn't have any with me. I usually bring the,
What we have is an outlet center, and it is located, as he mentioned, in Pike Plaza here in North Little Rock. The hours of operation are from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday.
And I know one of the things that Alderman Berry told me that he acquired there, that we're going to, as more and more we get deeper into our energy issues, bought some compact fluorescent light bulbs, and got a good price, and so there's a lot of good stuff at great prices that are at that store, and I would encourage people to listen to those hours and shop till they drop.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, and you can convey to Mr. Plunkett that, we've amended, and we certainly support Habitat, and we look forward to continuing to work with them as y'all have worked with us. We appreciate it. Thank you. Next item.
Resolution 0693, Alderman Parker.
Call it, please.
A resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to accept the donation of certain properties from J.D. Ashley Senior Family Limited Partnership and Finn Ash Associates Incorporated.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I'd like to do a little narration on this year-long project of mine to clean up the side of Scenic Hill. By the way, this particular piece of property is directly across from Habitat for Humanity. We just got through addressing that. It's a area that I call home. The city is the benefactor, but the man that owned the property also was my neighbor for many years, and one of the first real estate developments that he had as a commercial developer was the Pike Plaza Shopping Center. That area is near and dear to me, and I'm looking forward to the acceptance of this resolution by the City Council tonight and the beginning of a new phase of making North Little Rock a more beautiful place to live, with a special emphasis placed on the side of Scenic Hill to make it more scenic in nature. And I hope, once this resolution passed, that our mayor will direct our City Works Department to begin work on that very project.
I already have visited with Mr. Ward and discussed the ongoing involvement of the City Hall as well as the City Council, and they are extremely sensitive. This extremely busy time. We're going to try to make it a priority with what we are trying to say grace over as is. We certainly support this, and with that, Ms. Whitby, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas? Yes. Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
Resolution 0694, Alderwoman Robinson.
Please call it.
A resolution approving installation of a speed hump on Gribble Street.
Move for adoption.
Yeah, let me, there's a motion made for adoption. I assume there's a second. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Marvin, I don't think he's out there, but I talked to him a little earlier, and apparently there was the speed hump legislation that was filed. And I say the legislation, the speed hump recommendations that were filed at the last city council meeting. Is that?
No, we may have gotten it in the mail, but I don't think it's been part
It
of the
was
agenda.
one of our letters.
It was a communication.
The communication was at the last council meeting or the
Yes, sir.
communication? Last council meeting.
It was communication number 6.
The normal procedure, and of course, you know, and visiting with Mr. Marvin a little earlier today, come on up to the microphone, Tim. Yeah, I'm told that this is the only one that you recommended.
Correct.
And that the normal way that we do this is to, of course, normally there's more than one, but that we file this and allow people a chance, including the council, to comment on it. If there are any comments, then we take that into consideration, and then we bring forth legislation to move this forward. Now, you know, this being the only one, I know you and I visited a little earlier today, and I didn't have a chance to talk with Alderwoman Robinson on this, but, you know, I don't know that, even though this is a little bit out of the way that we normally do things, as this is the only one that was recommended, I guess I'm going to assume that by us going forward with this, that the City Council is not going to add any more under the current procedure that the council adopted, and I kind of want to say that, you know, because we normally get a better price when we go out for these at, as a pair, or not pair, as a group, and so that's the only reason that I wanted to bring it to the council's attention, is that although this is somewhat in keeping, this is a little bit out of character in several ways. One, it's the only one that we recommend, and two, you know, we want to make sure that if there are any others, that we do them together so that we are in all likelihood going to get a bit of a better price. So I bring that to everyone's attention in case they want to comment on that. Alderman Witcher?
Mayor, Mr. Height and I have asked Mr. Marvin if he would look at Cary from JFK West to see if we can't find some type of traffic calming device that he could recommend that we could put in that area. I mean, we recognize we have a problem in that area, and you know, our ordinance calls for basically us to wait until September, and while I realize Ms. Robinson wants to do this, Mr. Height and I would also like to have our project included in it.
Let me make a comment on that too, and the question. First of all, I did visit with Mr. Marvin about what, you know, Cary is a little bit unique in that it's somewhat of a thoroughfare. We put one speed hump there, and the neighbors came down, and we ended up removing it, you know, because of their objections. You know, I know Mr. Marvin's recommendation is essentially 2 circles, a little bit, not speed circles, but, you know, somewhat of a curve area twice, or in 2 different places. His guesstimated cost on that was roughly $2,500 per circle, if I could use that descriptive term. And I guess the question that I got is, would we need to tie these two projects together in terms of a contract? And if so, you think we'd get a better price, or are these two contracts that would be done by different people?
I would say these would be done by different sorts of contractors. The hump itself is just a little small amount of asphalt work. This other is going to take concrete work and some curb construction and that sort of thing.
So what I might suggest is we could go forward with this one tonight, because it's only going to be one speed hump, and then we could still go forward with yours at a subsequent time as soon as we, I think we probably ought to have a public hearing on that so folks up there would know. And I'd be willing to go ahead and call that public hearing, for the next council meeting, if that's y'all's desire, and we can
Ready to go forward? I'm sorry, Mayor. Are you ready to go forward, Mr. Marvin, with a proposal for Cary?
I don't have drawings with specifications on them for tonight for that, but I can have that prepared at the next council meeting if you want.
Well, why don't we do this then? Why don't we go ahead and call a public hearing, and as soon as you get those drawings out, we can circulate those in the legislation. We'll go ahead and file legislation. I'd assume that, if y'all want to be sponsors, that's fine. One or both of you?
Both of us.
That essentially would support this. You can work with the two council members and I guess that's Ward 4. The two council members in Ward 4 to come with the legislation, and then we'll have a public hearing on Cary and the recommended speed calming construction, which is essentially a circle at two locations. Right. And what are those locations that you're recommending now? If you can remember.
I think it's Clay Cut Circle on the west end, which is immediately east of the railroad tracks, and the other is almost at the top of the hill, which is going to, I believe it's Countryside Drive.
All the way up to Countryside?
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question? Is this similar to what Little Rock is using over in the Pleasant Forest area? On TV over the weekend, I saw they put in a turning circle, or a means of diverting traffic around a circle. Is it similar to that?
That's what it is.
That looked very interesting when I saw that on TV Sunday over the weekend. So,
all right. Any other questions, Alderman Thomas?
I guess I was going to ask you, you're not going to put them back where you took it out, are you?
These are circles versus
these are circles. These aren't speed humps.
But the people asked for those speed humps to be removed, did they not?
Yes.
But now they're asking for a circle.
They're asking for something to slow traffic down.
Mayor, I'd like to make some comments about speed humps in general, and these issues. I think everybody, at least on the council, knows how I feel about speed humps. There has to be a better alternative to traffic control, and I strongly support Mary Witcher and Charlie Heights' proposal to use some alternative, because we wouldn't have had to take the speed hump out if it was appealing to all concerned. Certainly, we don't want to put them in and have to take them out the next day. That's an expense that we don't need to bear. Last year, about this time, I made a proposal, and I believe our traffic engineer approved that recommendation, that we use speed humps very sparingly, and when we do use them, use temporary speed humps that can be moved from one location to another as necessary, rather than putting in these permanent asphalt bumps in the road. There was a letter presented to the council at that time showing the cost and size and various options that we had with these devices, and it would be my hope that we would consider that on a very limited basis in areas where a permanent speed hump is not the desired solution to the problem, but rather temporary in nature, so that we can move them as necessary from one place to the other to address our traffic problems. That's on file as far as, in the street department has, or the traffic department has copies of all that information. I would like to see only permanent, irrevocable speed humps put in where there is no other solution possible. And as far as Ms. Robinson's proposal to put one on Greenville Street, that's entirely up to her and her neighbors.
We want a
There won't ever be
permanent
one
one.
put in Ward 3 over my dead body.
Okay, we want a permanent one there.
Okay.
All right, well, I think where we are is that we are ready to go forward. I don't know any reason why not to go forward with Alderwoman Robinson's legislation, and then we can deal with the desires of Cary Road and our two council members there at the next council meeting. You know, there's two separate, and the only thing I'm assuming is that, you know, this will be the only speed hump that falls under our rules this year.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm sorry. Ms. Robinson, so you'll know when I vote no, it's not because of your speed hump, it's because I'd rather fall on a sword than put another speed hump in this city, so.
Yeah, many of us are not in favor of speed humps, but I will tell you that some of our citizens are, you know, very, very supportive of it. With that, on the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
No.
And Witcher.
No.
Motion carries. Next item, ordinance 0661, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
This is an ordinance designating an easement located on property owned by the city of North Little Rock to be an access easement. First reading.
This is simply the correction of our clarification as it indicates. I don't know any reason why we should hold off on this, so if anyone would suspend the rules, I think we can get this one resolved.
I'll suspend the rules and place it on second reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance designating an easement located on property owned by the city of North Little Rock to be an access easement. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules, place it on third reading.
Second. On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant. Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance designating an easement located on property owned by the city of North Little Rock to be an access easement. Third and final reason.
On the question?
reading.
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Ordinance 0662, Alderman Parker and Barry.
Call it, please.
This is an ordinance to reclassify certain property located in an area along Maumelle Boulevard, northwest of the intersection of Camp Massey and Maumelle Boulevard, and south of Collins Industrial Drive, in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, from the present I-2 to C3 classification by amending ordinance number 7697 of the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place it on second reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
In ordinance to reclassify certain property located in an area along Maumelle Boulevard, northeast of the intersection of Camp Massey and Maumelle Boulevard, and south of Collins Industrial Drive, in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, from the present I-2 to C3 classification by amending ordinance number 7697 of the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place it on third reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance to reclassify certain property located in the area along Maumelle Boulevard, northwest of the intersection of Camps Massey and Maumelle Boulevard, and south of Collins Industrial Drive, in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, from the present I-2 to C3 classification by amending ordinance number 7697 of the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Third and final reading.
On the question?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Ordinance 0663, Alderman Parker and Barry.
Call it, please.
This is an ordinance granting a special use to allow expansion of an existing plumbing supply business and storage in a C3 zone for certain real property located at 7322 Cock of the Walk Drive in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place it on second reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Bryant.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
An ordinance granting a special use to allow the expansion of an existing plumbing supply business in storage in a C3 zone for certain real property located at 7322 Cockle Walk Drive in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place it on its third and final reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height? And Witcher?
Yes.
An ordinance granting a special use to allow expansion of an existing plumbing supply business in storage in a C3 zone for certain real property located at 7322 Cockle Walk Drive in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Third and final reading.
On the question?
Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry? Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
Ordinance 0664, Alderman Parker and Barry.
Call it.
This
Oh,
is
could we add another sponsor to that, please? Alderman Height wants to be added as sponsor.
Without objection, Alderman Height will be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you.
This is an ordinance granting a special use to allow the distribution of chemicals in the I-2 zone for certain real property located at 5420 North Shore Drive in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. First reading.
Move we suspend the rules and place it on the second reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
An ordinance granting a special use to allow the distribution of chemicals in an I-2 zone for certain real property located at 5420 North Shore Drive in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place it on the third reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
An ordinance granting a special use to allow the distribution of chemicals in an I-2 zone for certain real property located at 5420 North Shore Drive in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Third and final reading.
On the question?
Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Parker? Height?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Mayor?
Yes.
We have the applicant here tonight. I'd like to introduce Mr. Bill Dozier, who is the manager of Hisco, one of our new business neighbors here in North Little Rock.
Good. You want to come to the microphone and introduce yourself and tell us what your business does, and we'll give you a commercial here.
Members of the council, thank you very much for your approval tonight. Hisco is a distributor specifically in the electronic industry, and our customer base is mainly the aerospace and defense industry. Customers in this area, most familiar would be a customer like Falcon Jet out at the airport. We're excited about the opportunity to build our new building in North Shore Park. It's a wonderful, wonderful development, and we're anxious to get started. We've been for 30 years off Distribution Drive behind Wallach's, the old Wallach's Furniture Building down there. So we need a new building, and we're looking forward to being in North Little Rock. Thank you very
Hope
much.
you grow and prosper even more.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I know that we've got some material that's been put together. I know I need to take just a bit of a break, so unless there's something that anybody wants to make any comments, we're going to have a 5-minute recess. So order. Mr. Boyle, why don't you go down and see if you can help them downstairs? this 5 minutes been staggered a little bit, and Alderman Bryant just went out the door, so I don't know if he was the last. And I know there he is. Could I ask council members to take their seat? I think we've got information that's sufficient to move forward. Well, Alderman Berry isn't here. Mr. Boyles, would you see if Alderman Berry's standing outside and let him know we're getting ready to get started again? There we go. Let me reconvene this meeting. We've got one issue. Did we call that, Mrs. Whitby?
Yes, sir. Resolution 0691, a resolution accepting a bid to provide wholesale power to the City of North Little Rock, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute documents.
Let me introduce Mr. Gertz and where we are. I think most of us know where we are, and we're at the possible end of the process of trying to select a vendor or a provider for what I'm referring to as interim power. Interim because the council has already adopted the legislation. In fact, several council members had an opportunity to go to Osceola and watch the turning of the shovel at Plum Point. May I remind the council that and the community that we have acquired 60 megawatts of power. Now, our normal annual consumption is somewhere in the 200 to 250 range. Is that correct, Mr. Gertz?
That's correct.
So 60 megawatts is a significant portion, but still, and then although I don't know that we count it as firm power, I don't know that we can, our hydroelectric plant, in average production, what do we?
Well, its maximum capacity is 40 megawatts. It's a run-of-the-river facility, so we can't rely on it completely. But probably on an average basis, we're looking at somewhere between 15 and 20 megawatts.
So 15 to 20 megawatts. We've got 60 megawatts that we have contracted for beginning in the beginning in the spring before the summer of 2010. And then the other, what I refer to as light at the end of our tunnel, is the retiring of the debt on the hydro at 2014. We are also in active negotiations with NRC, which is the owner of Big Cajun, about being a participant to the tune of another 60 megawatts, unless recommendations change on Big Cajun. The negotiations are ongoing with that, and still a big issue with regard to that is transmission. We've been given a number that's reasonably significant, although we were given some numbers across the page on Plum Point, and it ended up, when that thing finally came to the lick log, so to speak, that there were no cost attributed to transmission on Plum Point for us. So, we're evolving on the transmission issues with regard to Big Cajun. We hope to be able to bring something to the council later this year on Big Cajun. The two unknowns are the transmission cost, number one, that Mr. Gertz, if you want to comment on that, we can get some of these preliminaries out of the way. And secondly, who all will share that transmission cost, whatever that final number might be. Do you have any idea when we might get some resolution of Big Cajun while